Hey Fear Minimalist, it's Sylvia Lark of thefearminimalist.com, and I help women of color break the fear-based emotional cycle that keeps them stuck in mother wound trauma. So I have a question for you. When you think about your current relationships, do those relationships feel nurturing to you? Do they provide support in ways that are most meaningful to you? If not, you may be suffering from unmet emotional needs in your relationships. So in this video, I'm going to share 6 signs that your emotional needs in your relationships may be unmet. So be sure you keep watching. If you're joining me for the first time today, I appreciate you stopping by. Thank you so much for being here. And if this content resonates with you, I invite you to subscribe by hitting the subscribe button. Turn on your notifications so that you'll receive all of the latest updates when I upload new content. Before we jump into the 6 signs, I want to make a couple of announcements because this is going to obviously affect the content that is coming or not coming in the next couple of months. So over the summer, from the month of May through August, or the end of July, I should say, I should be back in August, early August. But I'm going to take a break from making the YouTube videos because this summer I have a couple of major projects that I have to work on to meet some deadlines. And it's just not going to be very feasible for me to do the videos along with those projects. The videos are a major project in themselves. And so I'm going to be taking a break to work on some projects. I'm going to be doing some workshops, events, and if some of you don't know, I'm actually pursuing my doctorate degree. And so it is time for me to really get into the thick of that. I'm just about done with my coursework. And so it's time for the exams and obviously the dissertation, which is going to be a monster in itself. And so I've got to do traveling and things like that. That is the approach that I'm going to take. Wrapping up for the month of April, obviously this video and the next week's video are going to be the culmination of this month's videos. And then when I come back, like I said, the early part of August, we'll just resume with the regularly scheduled content to help you meet your needs. So guys, if you have any questions about anything that you'd like to ask me, you can drop them in the comments below. You can DM me directly and I will get back to you. And that should do it for right now. So let's go ahead and jump into the 6 signs that your emotional needs might be unmet in your relationships. The first sign that your emotional needs might be unmet in your relationships is that you feel consistently unhappy. You may often fantasize about being in a relationship where your emotional needs are being taken care of. Now, the thing about fantasy and imagination is that there is, in neuroscience, there's something called the neurobiology of imagination. And what that indicates is that there are certain neural substrates, basically these networks in the brain, these various areas in the brain that work together to create a similar experience through imagination as if you were actually going through the situation, performing particular actions to get your needs met. So imagination can serve as a sort of fill-in for getting some type of comfort from experiencing, yourself not fighting against the grain, so to speak, to get your needs met. But that's not a real long-term solution because human beings, obviously you've heard this probably several times, many times over your lifetime, is that we're wired to connect. We need social connection with other people. We need those experiences to help us increase not just the feel-good hormone, not just to make that dopamine go up, but to also increase that oxytocin, which draws us closer together. It's essential that you have not just the imagination, but eventually the relationships that go along with it to help you get your emotional needs met. The second sign that your emotional needs are unmet in your relationship is that you are trapped in this resentment cycle. It's sort of what I call a resentment cocktail, where you're rotating through this mixed bag of emotions that include irritation, frustration, anger, and bitterness. And you're trying to figure out how did this come to be? Every little thing that this person does sends me through the roof. You guys no longer want the same things. The habits that you used to adore in them now annoy you or turn you off. And so the question then becomes, what's the trigger? Why am I so resentful of this person? How did this become a thing? Because obviously it wasn't this way before. And so working through that question will help you to start to see the patterns, maybe trace back to when did you start to feel this way about this particular person? And you'll be surprised at the answer you may receive as you do this reflection. So the third sign that your emotional needs are unmet is that you feel lonely in your relationships. Somebody can be sitting right next to you and you feel extremely distant from them. Now, of course, I'm talking about people that you are supposed to be close with, like a spouse or a partner or your mother. But there is no emotional connection. Instead, there's emotional separation, this lack of reciprocity and loving presence in your relationships. And, where you thought was a true bond, you're starting to see that there is this gaping hole. And it's a void that you are having trouble understanding how it can be filled. And so, obviously, an emotional disconnect. So if you're finding yourself in situations where it becomes more attractive for you to engage in solitary activities, you may eat by yourself. You may scroll through social media more often than usual. There just may be this sort of drifting away, because you don't feel connected with another person. So that's a big one to watch out for, because that can be a huge sign that your emotional needs are not being met in your current relationships. And it can also signal a much deeper problem, like a mood disorder, such as depression. And so that can be worth looking into with a coach at a minimum, or on a more professional level, a mental health practitioner. The fourth sign that your emotional needs are not being met is that you struggle with low self-esteem in your current relationships. And so this is worth sort of doing a little tracing back into childhood experiences. We know that adverse childhood experiences, the more we have, the more at risk we are of not just physical problems, but also mental health and emotional problems. Really, it colors how we see the world, ourselves, and our relationships with other people. So if you had experiences in childhood where your self-esteem was hampered, and if that self-esteem really remains unresolved and it carries over into the adult relationship where you're experiencing some type of emotional neglect, then that can trigger those past feelings. So the inner child can become triggered again and bringing up those unresolved issues for you to resolve. And so the question then becomes, how do I know that this is from my childhood? And if so, where do I start to get the help to get a self-esteem boost? And of course, if this is tied to your relationship, then you're going to have to do some relational work. Doesn't necessarily mean that you have to work in tandem with the person who may be causing the problems, because it's really going to be up to them whether or not they want to work with you. Ideally, that would probably be the solution, but it's not always the case. And so if you are suffering from emotional neglect in your adult relationships that is triggering some things from your past that you may be working on, but you haven't fully resolved. So there might still be some raw and tender areas there that have not fully healed. And so looking into the relationship between childhood past experiences where you experience low self-esteem and your current adult relationships can give you some clues about what's going on first and foremost, and then how you can move about taking care of that in a way that can get you to where you need to be to eventually get your emotional needs met. The fifth sign that your emotional needs are not being met in your current relationships is that you feel like you can no longer be yourself. So nowadays you may be feeling like, I can't really say anything around this person. I don't know what to say because they might judge me, or they might criticize me or belittle me. And this person may be constantly cranky. Nothing you do seems to lighten the mood. What you say, what you do doesn't even move the relational needle like it used to. And so now you are caught in this tense moment where you are thinking about interacting with this person, but you don't necessarily want to, or you have these reservations because something is different. There is an emotional rift that has been created between you and this other person to the point where you feel like you can no longer be yourself around them. The sixth and the final sign that your emotional needs are not being met in your current relationships is that you feel disconnected physically, mentally, and behaviorally. So there is this lack of physical connection with another person. So a lack of hugs, a lack of cuddles, a lack of kisses, maybe. Just a general sense of being together, maybe holding hands or sitting beside one another. And another area where there's physical disconnection too can be more on a personal level. So where you're not really dependent on another person to sort of connect with, but it's more about feeling disembodied or feeling constricted, not feeling safe in the body, not feeling grounded. There could be that sort of sense around you of this physical thing that you lack. Emotionally, you may not feel comfortable speaking your truth or being honest with the other person in your relationship, because as we sort of talked about in a previous step, is that we might be belittled or criticized or judged harshly. And so we're therefore walking on these proverbial eggshells, right? Behaviorally, you may be doing things to make yourself feel better because you don't feel very good about yourself in this current relationship. So, you may binge on certain types of comfort foods. You may increase your alcohol usage. There may be a sudden spending and shopping spree. You're spending or shopping more than usual. And what you're really trying to do is make yourself feel better because the pain centers in the brain have been activated. And so that puts pressure on you to activate pleasure, to make the pain go away. So it's not just physical, mental, or behavioral, but it's also neurobiological. You are seeking to meet a very basic biological need for social and emotional connection. Those are the 6 warning signs that your emotional needs are not being met in your current relationships. And if you're looking for a guide to help you start getting some practice with getting your emotional needs met, be sure to download my free How to Get My Emotional Needs Met worksheet by clicking the link below. If this video resonated with you, be sure to let me know by connecting with me on social media. I'm on Instagram at Fear Minimalist, Twitter at Fear Minimalist, and Facebook at Fear Minimalist. Let's have a conversation about healing complex trauma and the mother wound more in depth. All right, everyone, thank you so much for being here. That will do it for today. If you like this video, hit the like button below, share with your friends, drop a comment below to let me know what you took away from today's video, and be sure to subscribe. Hit that subscribe button, turn on your notifications so that you'll receive all of the latest updates when I upload new content every single week. And remember, the sun is going to rise and shine bright tomorrow. The question is, are you going to rise with it and allow your best self to shine? I hope you do, and I will see you next time. Have a good one.